8:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here's the news edited by Lal Malawarachi and read by Ramesh Pires. First, the headlines. The Prime Minister pledges to take steps to manage the food crisis. A special COPE meeting decides to take an oath at the commencement of statements. The Education Minister says school holidays will be shortened in August and December. The National People's Power says no solution to the crisis was discussed in the Parliament. The US government announces third tranche of new funding. Sri Lanka's inflation hits record 45.3% in May. In foreign news, Russia warns Lithuania of consequences over rail transit blockade. In sports, it's cricket. Asalanka's century propelled Sri Lanka to 258. Now the local news in detail. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says steps will be taken to control the food crisis, although it could directly affect 4 million to 5 million Sri Lankans in the future. Speaking at a meeting of the Food Security Committee at the Prime Minister's office recently, the Prime Minister instructed the officials to pay more attention to the children and the elderly in particular. The Prime Minister further said to provide leadership to develop and target 336 divisional secretariats in the island under the Food Security Programme. 225 divisions should be handed over to the Members of Parliament and the rest to the top officials, including the secretaries to the ministries and the private sector, to provide leadership. It was proposed to recruit graduates from the divisional secretariats for this purpose. A special COPE meeting held today decided to take an oath at the commencement of the statements made by the officials when summoned before the committee. Accordingly, officials who will be appearing before COPE in future will have to take an oath at the beginning of the committee meeting that their statements are accurate and truthful. The special meeting of the Committee on Public Enterprises was chaired by MP Professor Charita Herath. The chairman tabled the statement withdrawal letter dated 11/6/2022 pertaining to the statement made on the 10th/6/2022 at COPE by the former CEB chairman MMC Ferdinando. It was decided to summon Mr. Ferdinando before COPE on the 23rd/6/2022 at 11 a.m. It was also decided to hold a special meeting on the July 25th based on the expert reports on the progress of Sri Lankan Airlines. Education Minister Susil Premajayantha says school holidays will be shortened in August and December and the number of school days to be increased to cover the syllabus missed by children during these additional school days. He said continual training sessions would be conducted for primary school teachers from July, while providing another training session for advanced level teachers through the university system. A quiz review and additional programs will be conducted for students appearing for the exam, the minister said. The special educational sessions will be held in August, September and October, and arrangements are being made to conduct training sessions in July with the daily data and information obtained from the Director of Education in all 9 provinces. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. We continue with more local news. The National People's Power MP Anurakumara Disanayake said today that the new government has failed in a short period of time. He told Parliament that the new government has failed to present any solution to the burning issues faced by the people and said a short-term action plan should be presented before the country. He said people are dying in petrol queues and while cost of living has gone beyond the reach of the common man. MP Disanayake said no solution to the crisis was discussed in Parliament and pointed out that they only conduct a mere talk show. The government of the United States has announced the third tranche of new funding today to address the immediate needs of people hardest hit by the economic crisis in Sri Lanka. The U.S. Embassy in Colombo said this humanitarian assistance totaling $5.75 million will provide cash assistance, short-term jobs and agricultural supplies such as seeds directly to crisis-affected people to meet their basic needs. The new grant funding through the U.S. Agency for International Development builds on last week's announcement of $6 million in grants through U.S. aid and $120 million in new loans through the Development Finance Corporation to meet the needs of Sri Lankans during the economic crisis. The Ministry of Health says 4 million Pfizer vaccines brought to the country are remaining. The ministry said some were not keen to get a third dose when the opportunity has been given even to get a fourth dose. Therefore, the Health Ministry said people should pay their attention to utilize the facilities given for their health protection. And that ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
On to the main story. News story, the overall rate of inflation as measured by National Consumer Price Index on year-on-year basis is 45.3% in May 2022 and inflation calculated for April 2022 was 33.8% according to the latest data from the Department of Census and Statistics. It also said that in respect to May 2021, the reported inflation for the month of May 2022 was mainly due to the higher prices level prevailed in both food and non-food groups. Accordingly, the year-on-year inflation of the food group increased to 58% in May 2022 from 45.1% in April 2022, and the year-on-year inflation of the non-food group increased to 34.2% in May 2022 from 23.9% in April 2022. And that came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
In Watchlight, the Health Ministry says arrangements are being made to issue fuel to vehicles of health sector employees every Friday at 74 filling stations island-wide. All healthcare staff members who are seeking this facility should be in possession of proof of identity such as the department identity card, which should be produced at the filling station if necessary. And that came to you in Watchlight. A bulletin of world news is next. Moving on to the world news bulletin, first the headlines. Russia warns Lithuania of consequences over rail transit blockade. French President Macron rejects Prime Minister's offer of resign. Centuries-old shipwrecks found off Colombian coast. Now the world news in detail. Russia has warned Lithuania of serious consequences after it banned the rail transfer of some goods to the Russian territory of Kaliningrad. Russia will certainly respond to such hostile actions, senior security official Nikolai Pashchov said. Lithuania says it is only following the EU sanctions imposed over Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Kaliningrad, a strategic region where Russia's Baltic Fleet is headquartered, has no border with mainland Russia. French President Emmanuel Macron has rejected a resignation offer from the Prime Minister he appointed, saying instead that the government must stay on task and act. Elisabeth Borne was criticized by some commentators after Mr. Macron's coalition lost its majority on Sunday. Her future looked under threat after the result, which left the president needing to secure support from rivals. He is set to meet his political opponents for rare talks today. Colombian naval officials conducting underwater monitoring of the long-sunken San Jose galleon says they have discovered two other historical shipwrecks nearby. The wrecks, a colonial boat and a schooner, are thought to be from around the same period as Colombia's war for independence from Spain some 200 years ago. The San Jose galleon, located in 2015, was sunk by the British in 1708 near Colombia's Caribbean port of Cartagena. Some historians believe its cargo of treasure could be worth billions of dollars today. Back to the headlines of the world news. Russia warns Lithuania of consequences over rail transit blockade. French President Macron rejects Prime Minister's offer of resign. Centuries-old shipwrecks found off Colombian coast. And that concludes world news. In development news, Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority entered an MOU with the Australian government-funded Skills for Inclusive Growth program managed by Palladium International Group towards several strategic areas of cooperation. The parties agreed on the cooperation framework to support key strategic initiatives, including revitalizing national tour guides operations to test destination development initiatives that engage visitors with rural and remote communities, initiatives to improve the performance of tourism businesses. And that was Development News.
Sports News is brought to you by
Sampath Bank. We present your future.
In sports, it's cricket. Charit Asalanka struck a maiden ODI 100 and Dhananjay De Silva breezed to 60 to raise Sri Lanka out of the mire they had been in after 34 for 3 in the fourth one-day international against Australia. But just as the innings had begun badly, it ended poorly as well. Sri Lanka losing 3 batters to mix-ups and their last 5 wickets for 51 runs, leaving 1 over unused. In response, Australia had reached 112 for 3 wickets, requiring 147 runs in 27.5 overs short while ago. And that was Sports News.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSP U Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
In business news, SLT Mobitel has signed a landmark agreement with the National Water Supply and Drainage Board to provide a call centre solution for the benefit of all citizens. Under the agreement, SLT Mobitel will provide a comprehensive call centre solution with 1939 as the toll-free short code for citizens seeking NWSDB services. The technological solution enables automated customer self-service and agent-assisted voice call facilities. And that was business news.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSP U Trust.
Economic news, courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
In economic news, Sri Lanka's central bank's own treasury's holding has topped 2 trillion rupees with 48 billion rupees in permanent money injected after the latest treasury bill auction, officials' data shows. The central bank's treasury bill and bond stock reached 2,045 billion rupees on June 17th from 1,997 billion rupees a day earlier. The central bank had additionally injected 746 billion rupees against treasury securities overnight into money markets, allowing banks to give loans without raising deposits and trigger balance of payments, deficits and forex shortages. And that was economic news. The weather report is next.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
And finally, on to the weather report. The Met Department says several spells of showers will occur in the western, Sabaragamuwa and northwestern provinces and in the Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Matara districts. Showers or thunder showers will occur at a few places in the Uva province and in the Ampara and Batiklo districts during the afternoon or night. And that concludes the weather report. And to conclude this news broadcast, a recap of the main news headlines. The Prime Minister pledges to take steps to manage the food crisis. A special COPE meeting decides to take an oath at the commencement of statements. The Education Minister says school holidays will be shortened in August and December. The National People's Power says no solution to the crisis was discussed in the Parliament. The US government announces third tranche of new funding. Sri Lanka's inflation hits record 45.3% in May. In news overseas, Russia warns Lithuania of consequences over rail transit blockade. In sports, it's cricket. Asalanka's century propelled Sri Lanka to 258. And with that, we conclude this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.